Early in the 90s, LucasArts introduced us to the longboat adventurer Guybrush Threepwood and his efforts against the evil pirate LeChuck in two mighty adventures that positively radiated with pop culture references: video games, movies, books, the whole shebang. So of course it should be expected that the third game of the series would continue this trend, and that it did. Curse of Monkey Island came out in 1997, 6 years after the release of its predecessor, LeChuck's Revenge. As a result, it had an extra 6 years to make even more references than ever before. This video will look at the pop culture references sprinkled into the third iteration of Monkey Island, and you better believe they filled it to the brim. In the previous Monkey Island games, the developers have always been quite keen to fit in as many references to their parent company, Lucasfilms, as possible. This includes some of their most prominent series such as Indiana Jones and the Star Wars series. Indiana Jones isn't referenced as much as the previous games, but a reference to Indiana Jones is made when Guybrush meets King Andre on Skull Island, where he demands the diamond. He states,
"That diamond belongs in a museum,"
which is a line from Indiana Jones and the Raiders of the Lost Ark.
This is the second time I've had to reclaim my property from you.
That belongs in a museum.
So do you.
You may remember we covered this in the first video, and this has become a running joke throughout LucasArts history. If you haven't watched the previous videos, you can see them linked below in the description. Now of course, when we talk about Lucasfilms, we're going to talk about Star Wars, and boy, does Monkey Island love Star Wars. At the start of the game, Guybrush meets with old friend and pirate, Wally, who survived the ordeals of the previous game and has become part of LeChuck's crew. One of the lines that Guybrush can use is,
"Aren't you a little short for a pirate?"
This is a reference to Star Wars and New Hope, where Princess Leia utters a similar remark to a stormtrooper disguised Luke Skywalker.
Aren't you a little short for a stormtrooper?
Huh?
Guybrush also meets with the voodoo lady, who he excitedly tells,
"Boy, have I got some stories to tell you."
This references A New Hope, where Luke remarks the same thing to his friend prior to the assault on the Death Star.
Hey, Luke! Vince! I don't believe it! Hey! How are you? Great! How'd you get it? Hey, you coming up with
I'll be right up there with you, and have I got stories to tell you?
The voodoo lady also explains how Guybrush needs to journey to Blood Island, but predicts that this is where Guybrush will die. Guybrush panics and asks her to come with, stating,
"You've got to come. You're my only hope."
No, Guybrush. There is another.
This references Star Wars The Empire Strikes Back, where a similar conversation occurs between Obi-Wan Kenobi and Yoda.
Told you I did. Reckless as he. Now, matters are worse.
That boy is our last hope.
No. There is another.
While on Plunder Island, Guybrush can look at the recently assaulted fort from the Field of Honor. When he does, he comments,
Funny, the damage doesn't look as bad from out here.
This is a reference to Star Wars A New Hope, where C-3PO makes a similar remark as they escape from the Tentative 4 at the start of the movie.
That's funny. The damage doesn't look as bad from out here.
Guybrush can later attempt to try and access the beach on Plunder Island, but will be stopped by the Cabana Boy, who asks him for ID. Guybrush can refuse, stating,
"You don't need to see my identification."
"I don't need to see your identification."
"I'm not the pirate you're looking for."
"You're not the pirate I'm looking for."
"I can go about my business."
"You can go about your business."
This conversation is a reference to Obi-Wan Kenobi using the Jedi mind trick on stormtroopers in Star Wars A New Hope to pass by unnoticed.
Let me see your identification.
You don't need to see his identification.
We don't need to see his identification.
These aren't the droids you're looking for.
These aren't the droids we're looking for.
He can go about his business.
You can go about your business.
Move along.
Move along. Move along.
It doesn't really work out here.
Move along.
Move along. Move. Hey, wait a minute! Your mind games won't work on me, boy.
One of the areas Guybrush can also explore on Plunder Island is the theatre, where Slappy Cromwell is performing. One of the scenes from his play has the line,
Act 4, Scene 8. Join me, Rosencrantz. I am your father.
which is a reference to the famous reveal where Darth Vader reveals he's Luke's father in Star Wars The Empire Strikes Back, while also mentioning Hamlet character Rosencrantz.
No, I am your father.
We'll discuss Shakespeare a little later though. Later on Plunder Island, Guybrush finds himself tarred and feathered, and many people mistake the pirate for the infamous demon chicken El Pollo Diablo. When walking into the Barbary coast, the barbers and haggis will yell at you, saying,
"We don't serve your kind here."
Which again is a reference to the scene in A New Hope, where a bartender tells Luke his droids are not welcome there.
Hey, we don't serve their kind here.
What?
Your droids. They'll have to wait outside. We don't want them here.
Let's wait out by the speeder. We don't want any trouble.
I heartily agree with you, sir.
While sailing the seas, Guybrush can attack pirates and challenge them to sword fights for their loot, which can then be used to upgrade the ship's cannons. One upgrade is the Destructomatic T-47. The T-47 references the airspeeders used in Star Wars, particularly by the rebels in The Empire Strikes Back. While doing this, Guybrush is asked by Haggis if he wants to cruise help in ship-to-ship combat. Guybrush can decline this, but change his mind, which causes Haggis to rebuke him. However, Guybrush wins him over by offering to set him up with his sister, stating,
"She's rich."
Rich?
This references dialogue between Luke Skywalker and Han Solo, where Luke convinces Solo to help him rescue Leia, letting him know that Leia is rich.
She's rich.
Rich.
It's also worth noting that despite him not knowing it at the time, Leia is Luke's sister, which strengthens this reference. Later on Blood Island, Guybrush meets a ferryman, who warns him of danger. The mighty pirate brushes this off, stating, "I'm not afraid," while the ferryman responds with,
"You will be. You will be."
This is a reference to Star Wars The Empire Strikes Back, where the conversation also occurs between Luke Skywalker and Yoda, right down to the Yoda impression.
I'm not afraid.
You will be. You will be.
Guybrush can also gain access to the Good Soup Crypt, where he can peer through a crack leading to a familiar location that I will talk about later. However, the reference here is a remark when looking at it. It's familiar somehow. Just as I've seen it in a dream, or maybe it's... I don't know. This is a reference to Star Wars The Empire Strikes Back, where Luke comments something similar about Dagobah when he arrives.
Oh, what are we doing here? It's like something out of a dream, or I don't know.
Back at Monkey Island's Carnival of the Damned, LeChuck captures Guybrush, where they discuss Big Whoop. LeChuck proclaims,
It was no mere nightmare, Guybrush. Search your feelings. You know it to be true.
which is another reference to The Empire Strikes Back.
Search your feelings. You know it to be true.
LeChuck also used this line in the previous game, where he revealed himself to be Guybrush's brother.
Search your feelings. You know it to be true.
The movies aren't the only Star Wars format to be referenced, as there are some references to the LucasArts video games for the franchise, although these are pretty well hidden. While on LeChuck's ship, Guybrush can use a cannon to sink other ships. There is no limit to how many cannonballs he can fire, however, if the player types in L'Apostle, the game prompts the player with a message stating, "Unlimited Cannonballs mode is on." This references the Star Wars game Dark Forces, where the cheat to use unlimited ammo is L'Apostle. Similar to this, the player can also press Shift and J while on board his own ship during ship-to-ship combat. When this is done, Guybrush and his foe's sword fight will instead be replaced with lightsaber clashes, referencing the famous Star Wars weapon. Moving on from Lucasfilms, there are a number of references to other LucasArts games. To begin with, I've focused on the references made to the previous Monkey Island games, The Secret of Monkey Island and Monkey Island 2 LeChuck's Revenge. At the start of the game, Guybrush sinks several of LeChuck's boats. In doing so, he meets Murray, the demonic skull. When he speaks to him, he asks if he can call him Bob. This would reference two separate areas, but I'll cover the second later on. For now, the Monkey Island reference here would be to Bob, LeChuck's first mate from Secret of Monkey Island. Bob often had the habit of dropping his head. In fact, he accidentally dropped it into lava, which caused him to miss the ship to Mealy Island. On Plunder Island, Guybrush meets with three pirate barbers. One of them mentions that they were originally a barbershop quartet, but their tenor named Dominique left.
We once had a tenor named Dominique, but he left. Artistic differences.
This references Guybrush's response in Secret of Monkey Island, where a map seller asks him if he had a cousin called Sven.
Excuse me, but do you have a cousin named Sven?
No, but I once had a barber named Dominique.
Close enough.
While on Plunder Island, Guybrush can spot some large vats that contain Red Dye No. 2. Pirate aficionados from the previous games may remember that Red Dye No. 2 is actually one of the ingredients used to make the infamous pirate beverage, grog. And just a side note for anyone who doesn't know, Red Dye No. 2 is a banned dye due to its links to cancer being discovered in 1970. One extremely hidden reference can also be found on Blood Island. Guybrush can select to use the water, with Guybrush refusing. Normally this would just be shrugged off by players, but if the player persists, Guybrush eventually, reluctantly, agrees, and enters the water, taking him back to the secret of Monkey Island where he sees a drowned Guybrush. This is one of the few ways he can actually die in the series.
That guy probably couldn't hold his breath underwater for very long. Too bad.
A less hidden, but similar reference can be seen on Blood Island in the Good Soup Crypt. Guybrush can peek through a crack in the wall which leads him back to Mealy Island's forest for the secret of Monkey Island. This references the infamous stump joke, where Guybrush can find a stump with a hole in it, asking for him to insert a crazy amount of discs. He would then decide he wouldn't be able to access that part of the game. While also in the crypt, Guybrush meets with the spirit of the deceased Minnie Goodsoup, who died of heartbreak after falling for LeChuck, as she had a fascination with pirates. She then asks what Guybrush does for a living, to which he responds, "Flooring inspector." This would reference the start of Secret of Monkey Island, where Guybrush tells the Lookout about his aspiration to be a pirate. The Lookout dismisses this, stating,
"So, you want to be a pirate, eh? You look more like a flooring inspector."
Another reference to Secret of Monkey Island can be seen towards the end of the game, where LeChuck captures Guybrush and explains what happened to the founders of Big Whoop. He explains that one of the four founders, Lindy, the cabin boy, sold everything he owned and was shot from a cannon without a helmet, while Guybrush replies,
"No one could be that desperate."
This references the first game, where a very poor Guybrush participates in the Fettuccine Brothers circus, where he is fired out of a cannon. Fortunately, Guybrush had a helmet.
It works!
Near the end of the game, Guybrush finds himself as a child near the entrance to the Monkey Head on Monkey Island. This would naturally be the same Monkey Head he entered in the original game in the series. However, you might also notice a monkey hanging nearby that acts as a height measure. This is a reference to the monkey that Guybrush befriends by giving him some bananas. He would then follow Guybrush and then help him by pulling a lever nearby, hanging there for the rest of the game. Probably not the same monkey, but we can dwell on that in the next game. One of the items that Guybrush can find in the game is a ventriloquism book, which he then uses to imitate others. One person he can use it on is Captain Rottingham when he's getting his hair cut. Guybrush imitates Rottingham, saying,
"Make me bolder than Largo Lagrange."
Largo was a villain in LeChuck's Revenge on Scab Island. While the character does appear to have hair, one of the items that Guybrush can steal from him is a toupee, suggesting that he's in fact bald. In order to proceed, Guybrush needs to challenge the barbers to competitions in order to recruit them for his crew. Two of the challenges take place on the Field of Honour. If Guybrush looks at the chalk markings, he comments,
"They remind me of something that I saw on Booty Island,"
which references the spitting contest he participated in. While on Blood Island, Guybrush meets with the Flying Welshman, who helps take him to Skull Island. While there, Guybrush meets with King Andre, who asks for Guybrush's name. One of the names that Guybrush can give is
Loogie, Captain Loogie,
which is a name he could also use during the spitting contest on Booty Island.
"I am, of course, Captain Loogie."
After finishing their business, the Flying Welshman sails away, stating he was going to apply for a job as a chef on Scab Island. Guybrush actually took this job in the previous game, although he was then fired for ducking out on the job.
You're supposed to be cooking.
Oh, I went out for a swim.
Nice try, but not good enough. You're fired.
While on Blood Island, Guybrush visits the Good Soup Hotel, where he can pilfer a recipe book. The recipe book contains the steps to make several drinks, some of which are actually drinks from the previous game, including Yellowbeard's Baby and the Bloody Stump.
Give me a bloody stump.
I can't. Chainsaw's out of gas.
Hilarious.
Inside the Good Soup Hotel, Guybrush can spot a spittoon they can attempt to pick up. Guybrush will refuse, however, stating,
"I don't carry around other people's spit anymore. I've grown past that stage."
This references LeChuck's Revenge, where Guybrush needs to use paper to pick up some of Largo Lagrange's spit to use in a voodoo doll. The finale of the game takes place in Big Wood Amusement Park, which was seen in the previous game. One set shows Monkey Island's hermit, Herman Toothrod, who is seen next to a three-headed monkey and his deceased shipmate. Much like in the first game, where Guybrush needs to use the rope that dangles this body, the mighty pirate needs to use the rope again to defeat LeChuck. A second stage shows the figures that originally held the 4 map pieces that led Guybrush to Big Whoop: Rapscallion, Rum Roger Sr., Young Lindy the Cabin Boy, and Captain Marley, while another stage shows a torture scene with Wally dangling over an acid pit, as seen in the previous game. Poor guy just can't catch a break.
Hey, watch it with a spit!
Much like in the previous games, there are references to Sam and Max, although this time mainly focusing on the psychotic lagomorph Max. To begin with, the rabbit can be seen on Plunder Island, while Guybrush is in the theatre messing with the lights. Another reference to Sam and Max can be seen at Big Wood, where a sign appears showing Hall of Oddities, Frozen Bigfoot, and Trixie the Giraffe Neck Girl. All of these are attractions at a carnival that the furry duo investigate in Sam and Max Hit the Road. At the start of the game, Guybrush meets with Wally, who has joined LeChuck's crew. He states,
"I feel like I could take on the world!"
which references LucasArts' Day of the Tentacle, where the purple tentacle utters the same thing upon drinking polluted water, setting the game's story in motion.
I feel like I could. Like I could. Like I could. Take on the world.
Another LucasArts game to be referenced can be found on Plunder Island when Guybrush enters Blondbeard's chicken restaurant, where you'll notice a quiet patron. When he pushes them to get their attention, the patron slumps over, revealing that they are deceased. Guybrush will notice he sports a badge stating, "Ask me about Grim Fandango." Grim Fandango was a 1998 LucasArts game, often hailed as one of the best video games in existence, where the player controls Manny Calavera, a skeleton with similar facial markings to the one seen in Curse of Monkey Island. A similar joke appeared in Secret of Monkey Island, where a patron sported the badge stating, "Ask me about Loon," another of LucasArts video games. Speaking of Loon, the game features several references to the 1990 LucasArts game. One could be seen on Plunder Island as Guybrush talks to the voodoo lady, who helps him after turning Elaine into a gold statue. After Guybrush complains about how complicated it is, the voodoo lady states,
"That's nothing. Just be glad she wasn't turned into a magic swan."
This references Loom, where the main character's mother is turned into a swan. While locked away by LeChuck on Monkey Island, Guybrush can also ask his foe,
Do you know the name Bobbin Threadbare?
No.
Exactly.
which was the name of the protagonist from Loom. Much like the hidden Secret of Monkey Island joke from earlier, the player can also trigger a further reference to another LucasArts game by entering Stan's crypt a few dozen times. Eventually, Guybrush will enter and Stan will be missing. In the corner, he'll notice a woman in a web being attacked by a spider. This would be Maggie from the 1955 LucasArts game The Dig, where she's trapped in a web and the player needs to free her. Creepy. When Guybrush is also in a crypt, he can try and put his arm through a crack, where he'll state, "Ah, my arm is stuck. My circulation has been cut off. You'll have to cut off my arm." Which references Ludger Brink from The Dig, who gets his arm caught in a crack and it requires amputation.
My circulation is cut off. No blood is getting to my hand. You can't pull me out, Commander. Don't leave me to die here, even if you have to cut off my hand.
If Guybrush looks through this crack, he will see into Mort's house. At the bottom is a book titled Zombies Ate My Neighbours, which was another video game made by LucasArts for the Super Nintendo Entertainment System in 1993. Guybrush also visits a cannibal village on Blood Island, where he sees an assortment of food and some idols. The idols are named Ricky and Myron. Ricky Myron is actually a character from the LucasArts game Full Throttle. While on Skull Island, Guybrush can look at some nearby clouds, where he'll state,
How cool! It looks like a giant flying snail.
This is a reference to the 1996 LucasArts game Mortimer and the Riddles of the Medallion, which featured a snail that had the ability to fly.
Fly the slimy skies, Mortimer and the riddles of the Medallion.
Curse of Monkey Island also references another video game, although instead of focusing on Sierra games like in their previous two games, the game instead takes a dig at another graphic adventure game. When talking to the Lost Welshman, they discuss the MYST that the Welshman is not a fan of.
Oh, how I hate that blasted MYST.
Really? I like MYST. I think it's pretty.
Well, sure, MYST is pretty. But egad, is it dull.
This would reference the 1993 graphic adventure game, MYST. Now that we've covered most of the Lucasfilms and LucasArts references, let's focus on the references to movies and television outside of the company. To begin with, one example to a very general movie staple can be seen at the very start of the game, where a logo stating CMI appears, accompanied by a loud noise and monkey screeching. This references the deep note from THX, which was used in many trailers and movies, such as Lucasfilm's Star Wars Episode 6, Return of the Jedi, although it was used in many other THX certified movies. Earlier in the video we discussed some past Monkey Island references, one of which was Guybrush wanting to refer to Murray as Bob. If you have the subtitles on, you'll notice that Bob is capitalised. This references the villain Bob from the TV series Twin Peaks. One of the characters Guybrush meets on Plunder Island is Kenny Foulmouth, who appears to be a reference to the American TV show South Park. The character acts, sounds and even slightly resembles one of the main characters, Eric Cartman. The character often shouts out for his mom, which is another aspect that Eric Cartman does.
Mom! Toy Story, Mom! Now, let's go! Toy Story!
Eric, calm down!
His first name also appears to be a reference to one of the main characters, Kenny, and his last name references the language used in the show by the four kids. Another one of the characters Guybrush meets is Haggis McMutton, a large and pretty stereotypical Scottish caber tossing man, because that's all we do. This references the Ren and Stimpy show character, Haggis McHaggis, who is also a Scotsman. Both characters were actually voiced by the same person, the late Alan Young. Guybrush also meets with Slappy Cromwell, who discusses the play he's in. If you tell him how terrible it is, he is relieved, because he believes this will make it a success.
Why can't you go back to the original scripts?
Oh, the sweet, sweet, bitter irony of it all. Now that you have confirmed that I have produced a work of unredeemable trash, I'm more or less guaranteed to have a financial success on my hands.
Why do I find that strangely encouraging?
This references the 1967 Mel Brooks movie, The Producers, where the main characters realise they'll actually earn more money by releasing a terrible play than a good one. On the seas, Guybrush discovers that his crew are effectively useless, and he tries to convince them to get to work, only for them to rhyme everything they say.
I'm getting so sick of you guys and your rhyming.
We're ready to set sail, though the cannons need a priming.
This references the movie The Princess Bride, where the crew rhymes everything that is said.
You've a great gift for rhyme.
Yes, yes. Some of the time.
Enough of that! Fuzzy, are there rocks ahead?
If they are, we all be dead.
No more rhymes now, I mean it!
Anybody want a peanut?
Yeah!
The fourth part of the game is called The Bartender, the Thieves, His Aunt and Her Lover, which is a reference to the 1989 movie The Cook, the Thief, His Wife and Her Lover. On Blood Island, Guybrush can find the village for the cannibals from the first game. They have a feast laid out and next to it are some skulls.
It looks like a ship's skipper, first mate, a professor, and the rest.
Which references the TV series Gilligan's Island.
With Gilligan, the skipper too, a millionaire and his wife, the movie star, the professor and Mary Ann, here on Gilligan's Island.
While in the Good Soup crypt and peeking into Mort's bedroom, there appears to be a parrot hanging upside down in a cage. This is a reference to the famous Monty Python sketch where a man attempts to return a dead parrot, only for the owner to say it is merely sleeping.
Hi Ned, I wish to complain about this parrot, what I purchased not half an hour ago from this very boutique.
Oh yes, the Norwegian blue. What's wrong with it?
I'll tell you what's wrong with it, my lad. It's dead, that's what's wrong with it.
No, it's resting, look.
While on Skull Island, Guybrush meets with Effie LaFoot, who attempts to lower Guybrush down to Smuggler's Cove. Attempt being the key word as he eventually loses his hold, sending Guybrush plummeting.
Here we go. I got it. I got it. I don't got it.
His words are a reference to the 1985 movie, The Goonies.
Hey, Mel, that's all I can stand, and I can't stand no more. I got it! I got it! I got it! I don't got it. You klutz.
While in Smuggler's Cove, Guybrush can purchase a LeChuck doll. The LeChuck doll wanders around and will sometimes state,
"My name's LeChucky."
This references the 1988 horror movie Child's Play, which featured a killer doll called Chucky.
Hi, I'm Chucky. Wanna play?
The doll also has a few quotes, one of which is "set sails for fun." This is a reference to the famous Star Trek quote, "set phasers to stun." While he's also there, Guybrush may ask what his name is.
Well, hello. Let's talk, Mr.
3-point. Guybrush 3-point.
This references the line made by British spy James Bond.
I admire your luck, Mr.
Bond. James Bond.
Another reference to James Bond is made in Smuggler's Cove, where Guybrush talks with King Andre.
You expect me to talk?
No, Mr. Threepwood. I expect you to buy.
This references the James Bond movie Goldfinger, where the villain has Bond tied down and aims to kill him.
Do you expect me to talk? No, Mr. Bond, I expect you to die.
Towards the end of the game, Guybrush is captured by LeChuck, who in typical villain form will start to provide details of his evil plan, one of which is what the nature of what the secret of Monkey Island actually is. Guybrush can guess what the secret is, although his guesses are references to endings in movies. The Rosebud as a sled references the 1941 movie Citizen Kane, where the word Rosebud is the last word made by Charles Foster Kane, setting the story on what the meaning of what this was, only for it to turn out that it was actually his childhood sled. The guy's girlfriend is really a man is a reference to the 1992 movie The Crime Game, when the main character falls in love with someone who's transgender.
No way. You said anything, Dale? Girl has to draw the line somewhere. I want to change you to a man. Why? It's a secret. Would you like me better that way, Jimmy? Yes. And you wouldn't leave me? No. You promise? I promise. Go on then.
That they have to shoot the dog at the end references the 1957 Disney movie Old Yeller, where the titular dog gets rabies and has to be put down.
No, Mama. There's no hope for him now, Travis. He's suffering. You know we've got to do it. I know, Mama. He was my dog. I'll do it.
That it's made from people is a reference to the 1973 movie Soylent Green, where food has ran out and instead a new product called Soylent Green is put out. It turns out that the horrible truth about Soylent Green is that it's made out of people.
It's people. Soylent Green is made out of people.
That the girl has her daughter and her sister references the 1974 Roman Polanski film Chinatown, where the detective discovers that one of his suspects was impregnated by her father, making her both the mother and sister of a girl.
She's my sister and my daughter!
There are also a few references to Disney, the whole concept of Big Whoop being elaborated on in the previous video, in that it references Disneyland's amusement parks. Guybrush explores some of the locations of Big Whoop, and also meets with a caution mascot called Dingy Dog that references the actors one would find at Disneyland. The character himself he yucks similar to Disney character Goofy, while he also wears a sailor cap similar to what Donald Duck would wear. Likewise, at the end of the game, the player can hear a father talk to his child about how LeChuck's frozen body is still hidden away in the Carnival of the Damned.
This carnival is great, Dad.
It sure is, son.
But you know, rumor has it that the man who built this place is buried here. And they say that to this day, his frozen body remains in the tunnels somewhere beneath the amusement park.
This is a reference to the famous urban legend that Walt Disney, who died in 1966, was actually being kept in frozen suspension and hidden underneath the Pirates of the Caribbean ride at Disneyland. Now we've got a large chunk of references to video games and movies out the way, which make up the majority of the list, but there are still a few leftover references that relate to outside of these areas, including music, theatre and books. One of the pirate barbers that Guybrush can hire to his crew is Edward Van Helgen, which is a reference to the guitarist Edward Van Halen. Guybrush can challenge him to a banjo duel, where he'll start playing an electric guitar riff much like Van Halen would be known for.
You're pretty good, boy. Let's see you follow this.
He's good. I'll never beat him.
Nearby to where the duel occurs, Guybrush can also see a rubber tree. When he looks at it, he states,
"There are ants crawling all over it."
This is a reference to the Frank Sinatra song High Hopes. The lyrics are, "Just what makes that little old ant think he'll move that rubber tree plant." Guybrush also meets Plácido Domingo. His name references Plácido Domingo, a Spanish opera singer. Palado's first name is also the Spanish word for pale, which refers to his inability to tan from his incredible paleness.
Wow, you're pale.
Look, babe, I haven't been sunbathing for very long, so cut me some slack.
How long have you been out here?
Since October.
In the theatre, there are also a number of references to Shakespearean plays, with Slappy Cromwell making an amalgamation of most of the Shakespearean plays. We already mentioned one before that incorporated Star Wars and Shakespeare's Hamlet. Another reference is the grave for Yorick, and Slappy addressing the skull of Murray.
Alas, poor Yorick.
Murray!
Sorry. Alas, poor Murray.
During the play, Slappy Cromwell juggles some knives and states,
"Is this a dagger I see before me?"
which is a line from the play Macbeth. Another Shakespearean reference is seen during the play where Slappy's partner pretends to be a dog.
Woof! Woof!
Spot! Ye blasted dog! Get out of me bloomin' garbage! Out! Out, damned Spot!
This is actually another reference to the play Macbeth, where Lady Macbeth hallucinates and sees blood on her hand, and she attempts to wash out the spot. Another line from Slappy is,
"A pirate by any other name would still reek. Arg!"
which references the Shakespeare tragedy Romeo and Juliet, where Juliet says, "A rose by any other name would smell as sweet." His partner also proclaims,
Romeo! Romeo! Wherefore art thou treasure? Romeo!
which also references the Shakespeare tragedy, although in a rather more pirate manner. While on Blood Island, Guybrush can try and give the Flying Welshman money, but Guybrush would refuse, stating, "Not until he gets me to the other side." This is a reference to the Christa Burr song, "Don't Pay the Ferryman," which uses the lyrics, "Don't pay the ferryman until he gets you to the other side." And finally, the penultimate part of the Curse of Monkey Island is called Kiss of the Spider Monkey, which is a reference to the play Kiss of the Spider Woman. And with that, I've addressed what I believe are the majority of pop culture references to be found in the Curse of Monkey Island. If there's anything I've missed, please let me know in a comment. If you like the content, then I'd be appreciative if you could like it, and if you want to subscribe so you don't miss out on the video from the next game in the series, Escape from Monkey Island. So thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Thank you.